Not only is it a pretty cool snake, but it is also a pretty cool and fascinating programming language. Hello, my name is Josh, and in this video, I will be discussing the purpose and applications behind Python, the programming language. I will also be diving into a little bit about the pros and cons of Python. So let's begin with a basic rudimentary question. What is Python? What makes Python different from other languages is that it is an interpreted language, meaning that the source code file you have, your .py file, can execute the lines of code directly. Or if you are using the Python shell, which is known as idle, you can type a line of code, or you can type in a construct, and depending on what your line of code or construct is, you get the results immediately. The reason for this is because Python is interpreted. To get a basic understanding of what an interpreted language means in the context of Python, we just need to visit its runtime or execution model. So this is what the runtime model of Python looks like. You have your source code, which is your input, your .py file. That is translated or interpreted by the Python interpreter to something known as Python bytecode, which is a lower level representation of your Python source code. Usually, this bytecode is a .pyc file. Then this bytecode is taken and fed into something known as a Python virtual machine, which is your runtime environment. All the Python virtual machine is that it is just a loop that goes through each line of your bytecode and executes it. And that all happens in basically one step. But behind the scenes, it happens in multiple steps, as you saw. But if you if you executed through the command line, you would see that you just need one command. Whereas for Java and C++ programs, if you were using the command line, you need to type in two commands, usually, one to compile and one to execute. Next, let's discuss the applications behind Python. Python can be used for many applications. The most common one I've heard of is scientific computing. Because of the NumPy and SciPy libraries, those powerful libraries provide capabilities for Python to do scientific computing. It can also be used for web development and for other common things such as graphical user interfaces or business applications. Now let's discuss the pros and cons behind Python. When usually you have a programming language that comes after something as common as C++ or Java, you see a few improvements made. That's where Python really shines. Unlike C++ or Java, Python is less verbose. It has really easy to understand syntax that you can learn quickly because it resembles English very similarly. Also, its forced indentation makes readability very easy to comprehend. Unlike other languages where you have curly brackets for certain constructs such as loops, and when you have this, when you have nested loops, loop inside a loop, inside a loop, inside a loop, you get tons of curly brackets, and this can cause confusion sometimes. So Python's forced indentations for certain constructs makes it more readable and more easier to see and understand for complicated structures. Now the cons about Python. Since Python is an interpreted language, you only get to bytecode. That's the lowest representation that you get to in the Python's runtime model. Unlike C++ or Java, the reason why this is a bad thing is because that makes it slow for some applications. So that's why Python may not be so good for really complex and heavy computations. If we look at the NumPy or the SciPy library that Python is used for scientific computing, that was actually written in C. So sometimes Python can be slow. So that's just a good tip to keep in mind because it's not being compiled to machine code. It's only being interpreted to bytecode. That's why Python can be a little slow. All right, now it's time to begin when you usually begin a programming language, you start with executing a simple hello world program. That's what we're going to do next using Python's tool called idle. It's Python's shell. You can download this directly from python.org, under the download section. You can either download the Python 2 version or the Python 3. I will be covering both. The differences between Python 2 and Python 3 are, it's just simple. Python 2 has more libraries than Python 3, but Python 3 has NumPy and SciPy and a few other differences when compared to Python 2. So stay tuned and let's look at
Welcome back. Let's now go ahead and execute our Hello World program. In order to do this, you will need a specific tool that Python provides. It's called idle. It's Python's shell. You can download it by going to python.org under the download section. You can either download Python 3 or Python 2. Once you open up idle, either versions, you will see an environment that looks similar to the following. Here, you can type in your lines of code directly, or you can open up a new file, and whatever you type, your source code you type in here, you can save it. It'll be automatically saved as a .py file, and you can immediately run it in the Python shell by going under Run and clicking on Python shell. So, back to our Hello World program. In order to print out Hello World to the screen, to the Python shell, I'm going to be using something called the print function. This is Python's built-in function to show output on the screen. There is also another way of showing output to the screen, but we'll get to that later. To use the print function, I just need to type in the keyword print and open and close parentheses. In between the parentheses, I can put in my parameters, which is the data values that I'm going to be putting. The data value I'm going to be putting in this function is hello world. This is a string. It's a sequence of characters between double or single quotes. When I press enter, I get my output. I can also put it in single quotes and get the same output. I can also print a number. I can print a floating point number. Now on Python 2, it's a little different. If I wanted to print hello world, I would just type in print, a space, and then between my quotes, put in my string. I can also do it using single quotes. You will often see strings being represented by single quotes in certain Python documentations, but you can do it both ways and it should just have the same effect. In Python 2, I can also use the open and close parentheses to print my strings, and it'll give me the same exact thing. And we can also print numbers, floating point numbers, and we can put it also in open and close parentheses. To see how the print function works in detail, we just need to call the help function. We call the help function by typing in the keyword help and putting open and close parentheses. Once we get to this screen, we just type in print and it'll give us information on the help on the built-in print function. So by doing this, I can see what values I can pass. I can pass in a file, I can pass in string inserted between values, and other things. In the next couple of videos, we will be looking at a separate environment called PyCharm. It's an integrated development environment that maximizes coding productivity. It's a little different from the Python shell, but it is very useful and very flexible in the way we code. So tune in for that, and thank you for watching.